Are we ready to take questions for Coach Grinch?
All right, Coach, what did you think of your team's first game performance against Jack State?
Yeah, I think number one, you start with winning a football game, and you never want to minimize that. And that's the number one goal every single week, hold the opponent to one less point than we score. And so thrilled to be 1-0. It's also a good reminder, what defines a big game. Lose it, you find how big it is, type of thing. And so it's a good reminder as a young program as we try to build this thing that wins are hard to come by. It never gets easy. And so we certainly was pleased that way. And there's a lot of things you got to clean up, and that was going to happen win, lose, or draw. And so, start that process, as quickly as this past Friday, and obviously back on the grass, physically today. And but anytime you ask a coach, you think about the bad plays. You just do. You default to that and say, how can we let some of those things happen? And so, got to clean those things up, but give the guys credit for fighting and winning the game in the fourth quarter.
What were some areas that you were pleased with, I guess, in the game, and what are some areas maybe you said you would clean up, but what were some areas that really stuck out that you really need to fix going into the
I thought effort was good. I don't think it was elite. And the minute you pat yourself on the back for having good effort, you're going to remind yourself that that's expected. But I thought we ran. I thought that gave us a chance. I thought we tackled for a game one. The combination of those two things allowed us to get stops and allowed some plays that maybe sprung a leak, but didn't turn into fatals because we knocked it down, as we like to say, and lived to play the next down. They don't get points for first downs, and so I thought generally speaking we did a nice job of that. I think that'd be one to highlight. One explosive is too many, and there's a couple examples. One from a schematic standpoint, where we didn't do a very good job handling a formation in the boundary that we got to get cleaned up. And then, a couple other instances where, and one of the conversations we had with the guys was, you can't wait for Saturday for it to become real. And I mean the job description. If we give you a progression, we see a play and a productive play attached to that job description. Otherwise, we give you a different job description. And so there's several instances of, you watch it on video, and this is a direct quote from a player to a coach. It's basically saying, "Oh, that's what you were talking about." There's several of those moments, whether it's spilling a guard or leveraging a puller or a number of different things, most specific to the run game. And so one of the messages, you can't wait for Saturdays for it to become real. Otherwise, you'll just be a week behind every single time. And so lessons along the way. And probably my biggest frustration, I don't think we had a chance to play enough guys, and that has nothing to do with scoreboard. I think that has everything to do with preparation. And guys attacking the work week and saying, "Coach, you need to put me in the game. We'll be a better football team if you do." Maybe in too many instances, just expecting that our job as coaches is to be friendly and find you a role. No, you have to earn a role, and so that's something that's we'll be better the more guys we get a chance to play.
Coach, you mentioned effort. Talk about the big defensive stop on fourth down by Jaden Williams.
Yeah, it's just sometimes tempo is a double-edged sword from an offensive standpoint. Is there's so much chaos. Yeah, we can't get into the particular alignment and the adjustments we'd like to get into, but then you run the ball right into an unblocked human. But you still have to make the play, and so that's one of those guys. One of the things we talk about is empty hands of the quarterback. Once you see empty hands of the quarterback, you put your foot in the ground. It takes 11 guys to stop the run. That's the extreme of the extreme. But I think it also speaks to Jay Will and just his. It's building over time. He's only been with us obviously since fall camp. He wasn't with us in the spring, but you just kind of look at it through the. Man, we kind of like having him in the game and kind of expect him to do something. And that was, to put it mildly, a pretty big play.
How do you evaluate the play of your defensive line and the pressure you got on Jackson State's quarterback?
Yeah, not much in the way of drop back game, and so sometimes the first thing you look at is sacks, and we want more. And so we got to find a way to be more disruptive in the backfield, and we expect to sack the quarterback more. Now again, on that same note, they get a vote in terms of what those types of plays are. So it wasn't a big drop back game in terms of what they did, and so maybe not as many opportunities as you can have on a typical Saturday. I saw there was a level of disruption. Again, I think from a production standpoint, we expect to have more. We expect to have more negative plays, more 0-yard gains, and I think that kind of speaks to the seeing a play at the end of the progression that we give you. I'm in the A gap, cool, but I want to make a play through the A gap. I'm in the C gap. All right, you're where you need to be. That's step one. Can I go make a play in the C gap? And that's not just the defensive front, obviously. But I think we can find more production from that group overall. I think they were solid, but I think their expectations for themselves, I think our expectations are a little bit higher. And you can circle back and say that that's put them in a better position from a coaching standpoint too. So those are obviously things we'll look at.
Coach Foss, talk about the resiliency of the defense on Thursday. Just what was your view of that whole situation? How do you nurture that going forward while also doing some of those improvements with penalties?
Yeah, I mean, you get wrapped up in the X's and O's, so often on the plus side or the frustrating side as well. I think maybe not every coach, but certainly for me and this coaching staff, we talk about effort so much, and we talk about resiliency. We talk about adversity not being a part of the game. We talk about adversity is the game. If you can't handle adversity, you can't be a football player. It's like if you can't strike out in baseball, like you got to find a different sport. If you can't handle giving up a hit as a pitcher, like you can't play the game. You're not allowed to do it. And so if football's that way, like if you can't handle the scoreboard not being exactly what you want it to be, then there's another life for you. And so and that sounds dramatic, but it's the truth. And so that's just something we're trying, again, because there's so much turnover in college football, you always, you feel like you're a first-year program all the time, because you're talking to new guys, but there's still, just as a first-year program, constantly trying to implement in that. And it's one thing to say, and it's another thing for the guys to go do it. And so that's one step in the right direction. It's one time checking the box. Okay, we found a way through certain levels of adversity and had a chance, a 2-minute drive at the end of the half, blocked a field goal, 2-minute drive at the end of the game, had a chance to kind of take away to win the football game. So all those things you draw from, and obviously it's easier to draw from when you get a win than the other side.
As the game wore on, Jack State did quite a number of different things. They shifted tempo on you, they checked in the backup quarterback as the wide receiver. What do you think it says about your defense that they were able to adjust and adapt to so many situations for a first time outing?
Yeah, and I think credit goes to the guys, and that's a really good point, and I should have brought it up, is we didn't get the free pass week one where the offense behaved and it just ran a small package and a couple formations or leaned on the particular play or formation group or personnel grouping. We saw a lot of stuff. Now the advantage is we see a lot of stuff on a day in and day out basis. So fall camp prepared us for that, and that's got to be something that we talk about each week. You got to be problem solvers. You got to be able to handle whatever an offense gives you, whether or not it was part of the week of preparation, and we got to make sure that we have an answer for it. And sometimes you don't have to have an answer for it, but you got to you got to believe that you do, because 11 dudes are all doing the same thing. We say if you're all wrong, you're all right. And so that's kind of speaks to that a little bit. But I was pleased if you could, it's scary to say as a coach, because you just want to find a way to get a win. So it's hard to say we want adversity, right? Talking about that, or we want a million different formations thrown at us, and you want 2-minute drives at the half. But if you could script it and it says a W at the end of it, you want all that. Specifically early on in the season in a non-conference slate. Always careful what you wish for, but I was pleased with that. I give the guys credit. There wasn't much panic in that way.
Coach, Jacksonville State's quarterback presented challenges with his ability to move. How would you assess your team's performance in handling that? I think
okay. I think some of the window dressing or however you want to describe. Sometimes I joke like it's a rave, the guy's going in motion and pullers and everything else. And that just really tests you from a discipline standpoint. The ones that we didn't handle stick out. Now, on a positive thing, they didn't turn into a fatal. We knocked him down, and so never allowed him to truly get that, explosive run and flip the field or chase after him and, ultimately lead to a bunch of points on the other side. So I thought we handled it okay. Would probably be, and just okay is not okay type of thing. But that's part of the reality is most weeks, anymore it's rare to see a quarterback that can hurt you with their feet. And so he did a nice job of finding some creases and running hard.
How does week 1 and week 2 change when week 2 opponent now has tape on you and what you guys did?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Week 1, with all the different formats, we had no idea what they were going to do. And then now we have one game study, and you're still kind of in the archives from a coaching standpoint. But again, it's a lot more same as in terms of the conversation week 1 to week 2, just because it's a new staff and kind of all the conversations we had a week ago. They've obviously have a one game study on us, and they'll pair that with, the film that they watched, based on, our history and coaches and where we've been and all those things. And so you recognize that. And then very quickly, that's just the norm. They're going to have a pretty good study on you. You're going to have a pretty good study on them. And in the end, you got to run, you got to hit, you got to change the math when the math's not in your favor and they call the perfect play and, play with effort and play physical. And no, it's a little bit different, but in this particular instance, it's probably a little bit closer just simply because if we're not careful, we're going to take too much stock in one game and one video. They can do a lot more than just what they showed last week.
How are you? What do you look at a guy like Gene Bellamy? His performance, able to come step up and make an interception. What did you like from him, and what have you seen from, I guess, in camp leading into this?
Yeah, just plays very confident. And, that's one of those positions. Obviously, you want confidence at every level of your defense, but certainly a corner, a guy that just doesn't seem like the ball being in the air surprises him. And sometimes, one of your biggest frustrations as a coach, especially a secondary coach, is when a defensive back, is surprised when the ball's thrown in his zone or to his man. I mean, that's the job description, is prevent those individuals from coming down. You're not going to win, every one of those matchups, but he just has a tendency to win more than he loses. I mean, in our time, and obviously we care about games, I get it, but just in going back to spring and then our time around him. And so, kind of expect him to continue to do that. And he needs to. He's going to continue to be challenged over the course of the year. And, one of the things that you have to play in this day and age, you got to play some semblance of man coverage, matchup principles and stuff like that. So, they're going to challenge you on the back end. And so it was good to see him, make a couple plays for us. One on a vertical shot on a height discrepancy to be fair, and then obviously come down with the play at the end.
How would you evaluate the play of your linebackers? And if Lewis can't go in the first half, I know you guys were trying to appeal the targeting
Sure.
call. How will you adjust?
Yeah, I think overall you'd probably be a B. I mean, I think there was some meat left on the bone type of thing, probably like every level of the defense where there was a missed opportunity if we just trusted some layer of coaching. And you got to be careful as a coach. It's like, well, if you just do it, kind of the snarky, if you just do what we told you to do, you'd have done X, Y, and Z. And I really tried to not say that, but at the same token there's a reason we told you to, there's a progression attached to certain plays. And so I think they can play better. I think we get some more production from the unit. They played hard, which gives you an excitement level moving forward. And that's another position where we need to play more guys, regardless of targeting calls and stuff like that. J-Mac's got to play more. Kyle's got to play more. And it's football's not like baseball where the more at bats you have a tendency to get better. The more at bats you have a tendency to lose a step at times. And so the more guys we can play, I think that's going to help that room. And we think, specific to that room, Coach Onofre, one, does a great job with them, but two, I think we have some guys that we can put in a game and have some production.
How did you use the weather delay? Did you work right through it, look at film from
Yeah.
what had been played?
Yeah, the double-edged sword of the iPad is it's good because you get a chance to watch it. You watched it at the end of the series, and then with a weather delay, you got the same iPad, and then you watch it again, and then you watch it again because you got nothing else to do. And so, well, whatever, I don't know, it was like 15 or 20 plays or what we had before the delay. I mean, we've never watched 20 plays of football more than those ones during the delay, and eventually had to rip the iPads away from the guys because those plays are done and we got to move on and all that stuff. But no, it's probably pretty embarrassing if you had a video of everybody just laying around the locker room and stuff like that. There ain't much to do in those moments. Grab a snack, hydrate, grab another snack, hydrate more, and try to level up once they give us the go-ahead to go. Which the guys handled pretty well, which you forget about. That's kind of part of it, and a little adversity week one, and they responded to that too.
We talked to Jaden yesterday. Have you gotten your Jaden straight in the secondary? There's a lot of Jadens to keep track of.
A lot of Jadens, yeah. We got to rectify that next year as we look at transfers.
All right, thanks, Alex.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Coach Cooper over here next.